Hello, my name is Jason Johnson, and thank you for watching this video. I hope you find all my videos helpful, and thank you for subscribing to my channel. Thank you for clicking the like button as well. If you have any questions or feedback, you can leave a comment below, and I'll try to get back with you as quick as possible. This video covers the NetAcad IT Essentials Chapter 10, Part 1 of 2. So there's going to be two parts to this video, and Part 1 is going to be over mobile operating systems, methods of securing mobile devices, and network connectivity and email. Part 2 is going to cover the Linux and OS X operating systems, Macintosh or Apple, and then 10.5 basic troubleshooting processes for mobile Linux and OS X operating systems, and then we'll do a chapter summary. So let's get started with Chapter 10, Part 1. So Android versus iOS. So when we talk about Android versus iOS, the iOS, or the Apple operating system, was launched first with the Apple iPhone, and they did get the jump on the market for Android. But in the meantime, the Android market has come back and has taken over. So if you go and check out, and I'll put on the in the description below, I'll put the Wikipedia page which shows you which operating systems have most market, and it's a great page to check out because it is updated monthly. It's a great page to check out to see which operating systems are being used the most based on browser, based on shipped devices. For mobile devices, and then based on browser, so you can see, whether which operating system is winning the connectivity or the desktop war, such as Windows 10, Windows 8, Windows 7, or is it Linux, or is it Apple? So let's start here and talk about the differences between the two. So open source versus closed source. First, to define these two terms. When we talk about open source is code that is provided to the public. Anybody can go in and see what the code is. It's provided with the compiled program. You can go in and you can see how everything's written. You can decompile it. You can check and just check it over, and then you can take it. Then in most cases, you can take it and do something with it on your own. Most most open source software has some type of licensing agreement which allows others to use it. And then as long as you don't change the original, you can add to, or as long as you don't make money off of their part, or sometimes if you just give contribution, and say, hey, this part of the code came from XYZ, and you give attribution to it. It just depends on the licensing on it, but it's not the same as a closed source licensing. Closed source, as the source code is not provided, and it's not with the compiled program, so you cannot see how it runs. People can still go in and reverse engineer the software, and they can still kind of crack into the software and find out how it works, but it's a little bit harder to do that versus open source, which just gives it freely open onto the market and just allows it to go out. So Android is open source and iOS is not. That's the two main differences. Android is open source, so you can see all the source code. Everybody, you can take it and you can make your own devices. You can do all kinds of things with it. iOS is not. It's closed source, and it's proprietary to Apple. So when we develop in the IT world, develop software for that, the iOS, you can develop apps for the iOS, but it's a little bit more closed source, and so you have to go to the developers and develop apps to the developing store, where Android, you can actually go into the operating system and change the operating system around and make it do different things. So with the mobile application development, mobile operating systems became software platforms. And so apps are designed and developed to run on the mobile OSs. So you have the mobile operating system, and then you have apps or applications which run on top of that software platform. And so usually if you have an app crash or something like that, it's not going to crash your whole operating system. So Apple and Google do provide development tools to app developers. And so third-party people come in and they develop apps, and you can make money doing it. You can develop apps for the Android Google Play Store or other Android devices, or you can go in and develop apps on the Apple Store or the iTunes Store or Apple Store. I don't know I think it's iTunes. You can go into iTunes or go in there. I don't do a lot with the Apple. I'm more of the Android side. So you can go in on the Apple Store and develop apps on there and then make money off of that too as well, or you can just give it away for free. So with the application and content sources, apps are essential. Apps are essentially programs designed for mobile devices. So they're applications, but they're programs designed for the mobile devices. So mobile OS manufacturers usually maintain some type of online store where users can locate, download, and install apps. With Google, it's the Google Play Store. With Android, you've got or with iOS, you've got I think it's iTunes, or you go to their store. Windows has got their Windows. You can go in and buy apps for that. I know for Windows 10, you can go in and buy apps now for the Windows 10 platform. I know on my Xbox One, you can go in and get apps and then download those to the operating system on the gaming system. Works very similar. So Android users can also sideload apps. In other words, they can load apps that are not in the store. You can go in, and you want to be very careful about that. You can go into developer mode, and you can load apps that are not sent through the store and aren't approved. But you want to be very careful, because those apps have not been vetted in any way, shape, or form, and they can contain malicious software, malicious things like that. But it does allow you to do that. You also want to be careful with any of the stores when you're downloading app, because if it's a new app and it's not been fully vetted yet, Apple does, I think, a much better job of vetting their apps, and that's my personal opinion. They do a much better job of vetting. However, apps get released faster and more often on the Android side, and then they do get caught fairly quickly and then brought back down if there is some type of malicious software in there or something like that. But at the same time, you just want to be careful. So users of stock iOS must use the official app store to install the apps, where Android users do not necessarily have to use the official store on that. So when we talk about the mobile operating system, let's switch over here to the next screen, and we will talk about home screen items. So on the home screen items, this is a picture of a Android device here, and you're going to have apps, and I don't think this is the latest one. I think I'm currently using Nougat on my Android device. And but the home screen items, Android mobile devices organize icons and widgets on multiple screens, and you can swipe back and forth, and you'll see those screens, and you'll have little dots down here which show you that you have multiple screens that you can load things, and then you're going to have your apps down here at the bottom that don't change from screen to screen. Those are going to be your home apps. So Android's home screen elements include the navigation icon, Google search, special enhancements, and notification and system icons. Depending upon if you're using a mobile device with a carrier, with the cell phone carrier, some of those preload apps that you can't get rid of, those are pre-built into the operating system. They also have some home items that can't be changed and can't be moved. I know on the current Android operating system that I'm using, there's a couple of home apps that you can't change, you can't move them around. So it's defined by the launcher. Whatever launcher is being used, that's what locks that in. You also have widgets and folders that you can use on an Android device. So apps are represented by icons and arranged in a grid. In Android, the home screen apps are simply just a link to the app. So removing an app link from the home screen does not uninstall it. So if you just take it and you just drag it, you take that and you drag it up to the uninstall up at the top. I think now with the Nougat, you can just hold on it for a few seconds and it gets a little drop down button, and it'll ask you if you want to uninstall and remove the link. But just removing it there doesn't get rid of the app. You have to actually go into the apps area and uninstall that. The user can customize the position of the apps. You can move them around. Folders can also be created to group apps, so you can put apps inside of each other. And it doesn't show it here on this screen, but that's what you can do. And then widgets display information right on the home screen. So you might have, like this is a widget here for the OK Google. You might have a weather widget that shows you the temperature and some other information and weather and things like that. And that would be on your home screen. On the iOS, it organizes it on multiple screens as well, and you can see the two little dots there. You can swipe back and forth. You also have your home icons down at the bottom. So the iOS home screen has no navigation icons and no widgets. So it's just the ones that you put down there. iOS relies on a few UI elements, including the home button, notifications, center, and spotlight, or the search tool on there. And wowzers. Okay. All right, my tool took off all of a sudden there. And the search tool. The format of the home screen in stock iOS is defined by Apple and cannot be changed by the user. So they have locked it in. That home screen there, that cannot be changed by the user. Where in the Android, you can change that unless it's locked in by the launcher or it's locked in by your cell phone carrier. If it's a mobile device with cell phone, Verizon or I'm trying to blank on some of the other ones. AT&T, Verizon, some of the major carriers, they will lock those in. Now, with managing apps and folders on the iOS, apps are represented by icons and arranged in a grid. We have grids going there. And iOS home screen apps are the actual app Removing an app from the home screen also uninstalls it. So that's the difference. So if I take this and move that, it's going to uninstall that app. I can't just move it off here. It's going to uninstall it. So the user, though, can customize the position of the apps. And folders can also be created to group apps. So you can create folders and put those inside of each other. But there are no widgets on the iOS. They do not have that feature on the iOS operating system. Now, when we look over on the Windows mobile touch interface, and with the Windows, it's also referred to as the start screen. It's based on tiles, the tiling system. The tiles are apps and can display information or allow interaction. So if you've used the Xbox One operating system, or if you've used a Windows 10 or a Windows 8 operating system, you're going to be familiar with the tiles on here, and then they can have interactivity behind those. So it might show weather in the background, or it might show like your calendar. It'll show your up-to-date calendar information on there. But there are no icons, and the navigation icons include back, Windows button, and search. Back, Windows button, the Windows button, and search on there. You can also manage apps and folders. Apps are represented by tiles, though. Apps can be pinned or unpinned from the start button, much like Windows 10. Unpinning an app does not uninstall it, and the user can customize the position of the apps, and tiles can be resized, and folders can be created to group apps as well on there. So a little bit different, but some of the same features as well. Now, some common mobile device features: screen orientation and calibration. Mobile devices can operate in portrait or landscape depending upon the app. I know there's some apps that I open up and they will not go landscape, but that's because of the app designer or the app creator has made it that way. But sensors such as an accelerometer, I'm going to try to pronounce that right, accelerometer, allow the OS to detect movement and automatically adjust the screen orientation. I use a app called SkyMap. It used to be Google, but they've spun it off, and you can hold it up at night, and you have to calibrate it and move your phone around, and then you can find stars and planets and planets and stars and things like that in the sky by moving the phone around. That also works for like a GPS location, so it knows whether you're picking up. I know, the Google Fit or Apple's got some health apps on there, and it can tell how many steps you've walked for the day, what kind of exercise you've done, things like that. The watches, the Apple Watch, the Google Watch do the same thing, and the user can also adjust the brightness to match the ambient conditions. Most mobile devices have GPS built into them, especially the cell phone. Some of the, like a Galaxy Tab or something like that, might not have that built in, but most of them do. That's the modern mobile devices all include some type of GPS receiver, so you can do tracking on it. It includes navigation, geocaching, geotagging, tailored search results, and device tracking. You might open up an app and it says, "Hey, can we know your location?" So that you might have an app on there for a store like a Target or a Walmart or a grocery store, and then so that app, when you run it, it says, "Oh, I know you're in the store now," and then so it can launch ads and different things like that for you, or maybe coupons. But it can tell where you are. Also, they have the feature so if you lose your phone, you should set this up on all devices. I'm not going to go into it on this video here, but on the Android, you set it up. I use a third-party app on mine that'll do tracking, and I can lock the phone remotely. Most companies put some type of locking on a mobile device, so that if you are bringing your own device, but you're going to put the company email on the phone, they put some type of extra software on there. I know Google has got an app that lays on top of there. I know Apple's got the same thing, and Windows has got the same thing. So that if you lose that phone, the company can send a signal to that phone and not brick it, not make it totally dead, but they can remove information off of it before anybody, or hopefully before anybody gets a chance to remove information on there. Some convenience features, though. Those are designed to make life easier. They include Wi-Fi calling, mobile payments, and VPN. Wi-Fi calling is where you can use your Wi-Fi just to call two phones with each other. You actually have to have cell phone connection. You can just two iPods can sometimes make phone calls if they're on a Wi-Fi. You can do mobile payments if you put in some type of Apple's got a payment system, Android's got a payment system. There's some other ones out there, and you set your phone up or you set your mobile device up to have your payment information on there, and you just hold your mobile device close enough, and you use near field communication or NFC to transmit that information. You can also set up VPNs or virtual private networks. Okay, so these features, information features, they're designed to make access information easier, such as virtual assistant, Google Now, emergency notifications. Apple's got Siri, Google's got Google Now, and so those are supposed to help help things be a little bit easier for you. But with that, we're going to move over into methods for securing your mobile devices. As convenient as mobile devices are, you need to make sure that you lock them down. So you want to make sure that you put passcodes on your devices, or that your customers putting passwords on there. It helps protect sensitive data. The device cannot be accessed without the passcode. Some of the types of passcodes are not putting any on there. I would never recommend doing that. Never have a phone without some type of protection on there. But you can have a swipe. You can do a pattern where you have a picture on there, and you can do a pattern, or you can do a swipe your finger and do a pattern of numbers. You can put a PIN code in there. You can do a password. You can do trusted devices or trusted places. I've got mine set up so that if it's at my house, it will not lock. My phone will automatically unlock if it's at my house. So somebody could steal my phone and be at my house and get that information. But if they walked away from my house, then it would lock back again. They do trusted faces, but there's if you do some research, those are kind of easy to crack now. Trusted voice, those are kind of easy to crack. If I'm doing this video April 2017, and if you go do some research, Burger King, the food company, just recently ran an ad on television, and it did the OK Google, and the TV ad said, "OK Google, search, what is a Whopper?" And so people's phones were coming on and going and searching the internet for the Whopper through Burger King. And so I'm not sure what all the fallout's going to be, but that's one of the things, the reason you want to have pass locks and things like that on your phone. You can also do on-body detection, so your phone can tell it if it's in your purse, or if it's in your laptop bag, or if it's on your person, and so it will not unlock, or it won't do what they used to call, and excuse my language here, we used to call butt dialing way back in the day with older, dumb, what we call not smartphones, the older cell phone technology. Or you can also do Touch ID. There's some that will you can do your thumbprint scan, things like that. Now, you want to put restrictions on your phone for failed login attempts, so it prevents brute force attacks. So if you've got a 4-digit passcode on your phone, there's only so many combinations that you can go through those combinations over a period of time and guess those. Especially if you've used something like a birthday or something like that. So never do that. Use a number that has had no connection whatsoever to your birthdays, your anniversaries, your children's number, things like that. Never tie it to anything that's relevant to you. Tie it to something that's not known or would not be known to somebody trying to get into your information. Now, if you were to put the restrictions on there, usually the device is temporarily disabled for a certain amount of time, or for a certain failed locking attempt. So like I say, they try it 5 times and it's just going to lock the phone for maybe 3 hours, or it'll lock the phone for an hour or something like that. And that keeps somebody from doing a brute force. There's also some that will, if you put it in too many times wrong, it will wipe the phone. I think on the Apple it's 10 times. I think Android's got something similar to that. So if they put the passcode in wrong, 10 times too fast, like in a certain amount of time, maybe like 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever the time is, it will actually erase the phone. So that's another restriction on there, or a safety precaution that you can put on your phone. Now, when we talk about backing up your information and things like that, you can do a remote backup. Mobile devices can automatically back up the user data to the cloud. Different cloud backup options are available. Some of those depend upon whether you have, Verizon or AT&T or Sprint, or depends on which phone company. You can do those through them. You can also do, whether you have Dropbox or OneDrive, or on the Apple, you can put things up there. Go to Amazon, do the Amazon cloud. There's different options for you to be able to back your information up. There are locator applications. Those are helpful if your device is lost or stolen. You always want to make sure you have those turned on for your phone so that you can find those. Locator apps allow the user to locate the device on a map. It also allows you to remote lock and remote wipe. So you want to make sure that you have those turned on. I've had a user in the past that I worked with. They did not turn the remote lock and remote wipe on the remote location. They lost their phone. Somebody stole it. They did not get their phone back. It was just gone. And then I've had other users that I've worked with that they've had their phone stolen, and we were able to log into the application on a laptop or a desktop and be able to wipe those drive. We were able to first locate the phone, know where it was. We reported that to the police, and then we wiped the data to make sure that they weren't able to crack into it. Okay, so those are some of the precautions. Some of the software precautions, you might put an antivirus software on there. Mobile devices are vulnerable to malicious software. I've talked to a number of users that say, well, I use an Apple, so it's never, there's not viruses written for the Apple. Well, there are. There are viruses written for Apple. There are viruses written for Android, for Windows, for all of them. It's just that more prevalent, the hackers and the virus writers go after the hanging fruit. They go after the easy targets. So they're going to go after the operating systems that have the most. They're going to go after the systems that are the most on the market. So if you've got 60% of the market, they're going to go after that operating system. But it doesn't mean that the other ones don't have viruses out there. So the sandbox on a mobile device does limit the damage. A lot of times, if you get a virus or something like that, you can just wipe the phone. If your data's backed up into the cloud, you just wipe the phone and re-download your data, and you're good to go. But user data can be stolen, and PCs can be infected from that. So your phone can get a virus and start sending emails with that virus links on there, and then other people with email or desktops can get that, and so it can spread. And most mobile antivirus apps are available for iOS and Android. Or let me say, mobile antivirus apps are available for both iOS, Android, and Windows. There are techniques to grant full access to a mobile device's file system. That process is called rooting on an Android, and these are two terms that you need to be familiar with. It's rooting on an Android and jailbreaking on an iOS. So rooting on an Android and jailbreaking on an iOS. Those are the two different. So we don't say you root your Apple phone or your iPhone, because you don't root your iPhone. You jailbreak your iPhone. You root your Android device. So a rooted or jailbroken device will lose most, if not all, of the protection provided by sandboxing. You do open yourself up for more attacks and more viruses, things like that. However, there are certain things that you might want to do on your phone, that those restrictions of it being sandboxed or in jail. So jailbreaking it or rooting it does give you some extra advantages. However, be careful, because the manufacturers will, a lot of times, if you read your fine print, they will void your warranty. I know I had a Samsung Galaxy Tab. I rooted it, but upon reading, before I rooted it, I read all the manufacturing information, and they were very clear that if I rooted my device, it was no longer under warranty. Now, it had just so happened that device was not under warranty anymore, so it didn't matter to me, and I wanted to root it anyway to be able to do that. And so when I rooted it, it defaulted to where it was no longer under warranty, but it wasn't anyway. So just be careful about that. Now, patching and updating operating systems. Updates add functionality or increase performance with either iOS or Android or Windows. You're going to get updates periodically, and they're going to update the operating system, and it's going to add more functionality to it. You may or may not like it, but it's what happens. You lived what I call live with the beast on that. So you have an operating system, and they're going to update it, and you're just kind of at their mercy on it being updated. It's not like with a Windows desktop or maybe a Linux desktop, where you get to say how long you want to hold on to that desktop. When a mobile device says it's ready to update, you've got a certain amount of time, and it'll just update itself. But with that, the patches are going to fix security problems. They do issue hardware and software updates, so that if they're having an hardware problem, and they can issue updates to that. And both Android and iOS use automated process for delivery, so it's pushed. It's not a pull. So they push down those changes to your phone. Now, what we're going to cover here real next is network connectivity and email with mobile devices. Depending upon how you connect, if you use a wireless data network, your cell phone company is going to set up that connection with you or help you set that up. But mobile devices can also connect to the internet via Wi-Fi. In fact, in most cases, you're going to want to turn your Wi-Fi on and connect to hotspots, because with mobile data, it's expensive. My phone system or my phone plan with our phones at my house, we have 2 gig of data that we share. We barely go through 2 gig of data per month, because we are always close to a Wi-Fi. When I go to stores, a lot of stores have Wi-Fi. Be careful about that, though. But I've got Wi-Fi at my house, I've got Wi-Fi at my work, and so the only time I'm really on cell phone is when I'm driving in between, or if I'm visiting somebody else's house, and then sometimes I get on their Wi-Fi. But data transferred via Wi-Fi router does not use a cell phone network and does not incur data charges. But you want to make sure that if you turn your Wi-Fi off, to turn it back on, because I've done that before. Forgot to turn it back on, started downloading some apps, and I was still on cell, and so I ran up some of my data because of that. So you just want to be careful about watching whether you have turned that off or on. Coffee shops, libraries, schools, businesses, a lot of those cities. provide free local Wi-Fi now. I know the college where I teach here, we provide free local Wi-Fi. You have to go in and say you agree to the terms and terms on there. I know when I visit Lowe's, I get free Wi-Fi. Walmart's got free Wi-Fi. I'm pretty sure I think Target does. Some of the other stores I go into, Meijer, I go into Meijer grocery stores. They have free Wi-Fi for me. So I'm careful though that I don't do any banking or things like that on there. Typically, it's bringing down my email because I know that's encrypted, or checking my messages. I know those are encrypted, and so those are things that can't be hacked real easily. And then I can use their Wi-Fi on there. Now, cell communications are usually broken down into generations. You're going to hear 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G is on the horizon. It's getting ready to launch. And depending upon which company you use, you might use different, whether it's 4G, mobile WiMAX, or LTE. Depending upon which company you use, it's going to be a slightly different cell technology. We don't really get into it in this video here, but you can go and do some research on the two different types that you can do, whether you're on Verizon or whether you're on AT&T, and they use slightly different technology in the phone. So in most cases, you cannot take a Verizon phone and go over to AT&T, or take an AT&T phone and come back over to Verizon. So you want to be careful about that when you're looking as a IT person and you're looking at that as far as the phones for a company, who your plan is through. Now, another way to connect, you can connect devices into your mobile, or you can connect extra devices into your mobile devices. You can do things like Bluetooth. So you can do a headphone, you can do wireless headsets. You can pair it up to a car. I know my phone is paired up to my car, and so I can take messages. I can do hands-free dialing. I can do hands-free calling in my car, things like that, which makes it really nice. I can play music through my phone, my mobile device, through my car. So it's wireless, it's automatic. So I turn my Bluetooth on. Once I get it paired, it doesn't use very much power. When I'm driving and I'm doing music that's not on my phone, that it's streaming, maybe if I'm using a Pandora service or something like that, that's using cell data. So you need to be careful about that. But you can put keyboards. You can do extra keyboards and put on there. You can do a mouse, a Bluetooth mouse, and use a mouse on your phone. Not that you'd really need it, but you could. But the keyboards are nice sometimes when you're doing a lot of typing. But Bluetooth establishes a connection to the shared resources. The Bluetooth radios must be on both devices. You must pair them up. And they got to be in discoverable mode. And then in some cases, there's a security pin that's required before comparing can be completed. I know there was a time, not that I'm admitting that I did anything wrong, because I didn't. But I was at a stoplight, and I pulled my Bluetooth up real quick. There was a Cadillac Escalade sitting beside me, and I just tried to see if I could connect, but it popped up with a pin. It wanted a pin, but their Bluetooth was discoverable on their Cadillac Escalade. And so, just pulling the phone up and trying to do that real quick, you can try to connect in. So that's an extra layer of security on that. Okay, so when we look at Bluetooth devices, we're going to move over to email first. You can download your email, which is what a lot of people use their mobile devices for. I know that's the main reason that I use mine, so that I have my email with me. But email, you can bring it from the server down to the client. Email servers are responsible for forwarding the email messages. In a lot of cases, it's a pull technology. So your client mobile device is pulling those emails down at intervals, and you can set that in most devices. You can go in and say, I'm going to pull it every 5 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes, depending on how often you want to check your email. And that incurs data. So you just want to make sure that if you're using a cell that, on that, you can also set certain things so that attachments don't get downloaded if you're not on Wi-Fi. I know mine, I can set it to say if I'm on Wi-Fi, then go ahead and download the attachments. Otherwise, don't download those. Just let me just know that there's an attachment, but I won't download it unless I click on it extra. The Android email configuration, most of it's powered by Google. I know I can put Outlook, the Windows Outlook on there. On iOS, it relies on an Apple ID for App Store access and other services. I know you can get the Apple email, and then you can also tie your other email into there as well. I know you can add Gmail and Outlook and other things like that on there as well. But the Mail app does support many different email accounts simultaneously, so you can merge your mail together. I don't do that personally because I like to keep all my emails separate, my work-related versus my personal, but you can do that. You can pull your internet email down, such as if you have Gmail or Yahoo Mail or something like that. There's different ways to synchronize on there. And data synchronization updates user data in multiple devices. So you can have multiple devices with your email on all different ones. My laptop and my mobile device can be reading the exact same email at the same time. The types of data that can be synchronized are contacts, your email, your calendar. You can sync pictures, music, apps, video, browser links, browser settings. I know on my Android device, my Chrome settings, my Chrome links and things like that get synced up to my desktop. So if I save a new link or something like that, I can use it on my mobile device or my desktop. And I know the same thing works on the Apple side. Now, synchronization connection types, you can set that. The most common connection types are syncing via USB and Wi-Fi. You usually don't want to do that through cell because it does take extra time, especially with if you're doing photos and music and things like that. Android syncs user data to web services such as Gmail and Google Calendar, and iOS uses iTunes to sync data to storage, which can be local or remote, and so that you can recover that if you need to. Okay, so this has been Chapter 10, Part 1 of 2. Check out the description below. You'll see the link to Part 2 of 2 for Chapter 10. I know this was a 30-minute video. I apologize for the extra long time, but there was a lot of information to cover in this part of Chapter 10. The second part of Chapter, and that's why I broke it into 2 parts. So check out Part 2 in the description below. Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for subscribing. Make sure you click the like button below, and I hope you have a great day.